Okay, we're about to start because it's 3:35 actually, and we have to move forward. This is Marika Matsiboem. I'm the Innovation Strategy Director here at X23. X23 is the coordinator for the EU UNESCO4ALL-TOUR Project. Today we are delivering the last webinar from the high-level training program delivered by the project, and together with me Anastasia Yakush, which is project manager at X23, will provide also part of this webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and if you have any questions, you can always type your question in the chat box. Okay, this webinar is around sustainability and responsibility. There are key values for the presentation of the preservation of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Just a second, because I can't move forward. Let me see. Okay. So let's have a brief overview of the training. As you experienced in the recent webinars sessions, we had a course running smoothly for 3 weeks. You have already gone through the different modules, and we are at the moment delivering module 1. The second module was related to CCI-related technology. Module 3 was about accessible tourism. 4 about public-private partnerships in the tourism value chain, and then module 5, 6, 7, and 8, all covering very relevant aspects of the project and of the tourism and cultural heritage as well. So the purpose of the training program is just to spread the knowledge about the accessibility tourism in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. These modules were designed specifically for an audience by public and private stakeholders coming from the tourism, cultural and creativity field, and a specific module was addressed specifically to young workers. The table of contents for today, the purpose of the training we have already covered, learning objectives and outcomes, the definition of World Heritage Sites, relevance, preservation topics, sustainability and responsibility, plus summary and the different references. As regards learning objectives and of course learning outcomes, for the objectives, the aim is to understand what are the UNESCO World Heritage Sites and to understand the importance of cultural sites, to get the meaning of responsibility and sustainability, which are key values for preserving World Heritage Sites in the tourism sector in particular, and to understand the relevance of preservation. As regards the outcomes, the participants, we could understand exactly the different World Heritage Sites and how to protect them, the significance of the cultural heritage, the values of World Heritage Sites in a very broad perspective, and to get familiar with the protection of World Heritage Sites with respect to tourism. So, main topics covered by this session. We will talk about UNESCO World Heritage Sites, of course, because the project is focused on this theme. We will cover the definition and understanding of cultural heritage, and of course preservation, which is a key issue for the present time in tourism. So starting from the World Heritage seals that you see, the World Heritage Convention is one of UNESCO's most well-known and emblematic instruments. Was adopted in 1972 and ratified actually by 193 countries in 2017. So we have, but the list of course is related to 2017. Now the properties are increasing. At that time, 1,042 properties in 165 members. As I was saying, the list is continuously increasing, so the growing number of inscribed property has not curbed the desire to be on the list. What are the benefits covered by this very ambitious seal? Of course, the greater media coverage, the prestige that is gained through the association with the UNESCO seal and the other prestigious properties already inscribed. And of course, from a touristic point of view in particular, the hope of economic and local development, the future development of international tourism. The convention was adopted in November, as I mentioned before, 1972, and came into force in December, 3 years later. It was originally ratified by 24 countries, and now we have 193. The association of the terms cultural and natural is a break from previous perception of heritage. In fact, the convention established 3 types of property: cultural one, natural one, and mixed. So we have properties that are both cultural and natural. We have here a video that we recommend you to watch at your home at a later stage, because we do not have to, let's say, use all the time for today's session, but it's pretty much interesting because it provides you with a very clear understanding of UNESCO World Heritage Sites meaning and value. So, what is the outstanding universal value? To be included in the heritage and World Heritage list, a site must be of outstanding universal value that has to be duly justified. Differently from the past, today applications are pretty much complex because applicants must demonstrate that they are matching at least one of the 10 criteria, as well as authenticity and integrity conditions. So given that the 1972 Convention covers tangible heritage, the outstanding universal value must be apparent through the material attributes of the property that reflects its unique nature and characteristics. During the time, we also had new entries in the categories. There was a fundamental shift in 1992 with the introduction of cultural landscape, defined as the results of interaction between man and nature over a relatively long period of time. This concept of cultural landscapes offer a global approach, so recognizing the idea that a World Heritage Site is not frozen in time, but is a living and evolving. This new category, therefore, means that parks and gardens, rural and agricultural zones, and industrial type cultural landscapes can be taken into account. So, now we are tackling the meaning of cultural heritage. So cultural heritage affirms our identity as people, as a community, because it creates a comprehensive framework for the preservation of cultural heritage, including, of course, cultural sites, old buildings, monuments, shrines and landmarks that have cultural significance and historical value. And this is linking us to the topic of preservation, which is the act, the process, or the results of preserving something. This is the definition. So why it is so important to preserve cultural sites? We have already experienced the meaning of preserving, so why keeping our history, our roots, living forever? So cultural and its heritage reflect and shape values, beliefs, inspiration, thereby defining the people's national identity. And then it is important to preserve the cultural heritage because it keeps, as these people said in the video, our integrity as a community and as a society. And this becomes particularly important when cultural heritage preservation is challenged by a few external threats or factors, and tourism, unfortunately, over tourism, we have to say, can be in this case. So here we can see the relationship between tourism, which is a very important level for the economy of an area, of a country, of a population as well, and preservation. So no doubt that the UNESCO World Heritage Sites and tourism industry are very deeply connected. However, this relationship can be defined as ambiguous, because on one hand, the label, the seals from UNESCO represents a significant cultural assets. But on the same time, the overabundance of tourism flow can represent a threat. Tourism is one of the major worldwide industries. Just to provide you a few statistics, 7% of world exports, generating 1 in 11 jobs in the world, so contributing with the world GDP at 10.2%. And a few forecasts that a few research have already provided to us shows that a growth rate of tourism can be in a range of 3.9% annually by 2030. So we are talking about 1.8 billion foreign visitors, in addition to the already 6-7 billion by 2030. This is our data from the World Travel and Tourism Council in 2017. Next, please. So, why at the moment we are experiencing such a booming in tourism? Because there are a few very clear enabling factors. First in place, the technological advancement and improvement in the quality of life, so that there is a greater accessibility to means of transportation, in particular for air travels. There is a very good diversification of the offer, so we have a lot of low-cost offers, so increasing visitors to moving from one country to another. We have growing social political value ascribed to traveling, emerging economies, and so on. So when a UNESCO World Heritage Site is including in a destination, it is therefore a very attractive point for the tourism. We can say that we have two different levels, opportunity on one side and threats on the other side, because as regards the opportunity, being awarded with the UNESCO seals means that you will for sure have increased promotion and visibility at global level, and you will have as well the opportunity to innovate the tourism offer. But we have also threats that in most cases the destination is not prepared to this increase in the tourism flow. This means that it is not often equipped with a proper tourism strategy or a management plan for exploiting at the same time the opportunity, but also to countermeasure the threats. This leads to the impact. Of course, impact can be positive or negative ones. In terms of positive impacts, the UNESCO seal fosters mutual responsibility, creativity, and self-esteem among the residents and the visitors. And as regards the negative ones, it can generate tension, of course, because there can be, let's say, an imbalance between the offer to the visitors with respect to those residents, potential abuse of spaces, commodification, and waste and resource exploitation brought by over-tourism. Today, people travel for a different reason, because they basically want to escape for the daily routine, but also for improving knowledge of meeting family and friends. What is most interested for people traveling is the opportunity to break in the ordinary time and to, in particular, access new cultures, and this is connected to cultural heritage. So there is a strict focus on how authorities responsible for heritage sites shall work on improving quality and sustainability and reducing seasonality to reduce also the negative impact of coming from over-tourism. Again, here we have another interesting video dealing with heritage at risk, and I also recommend to watch this later on because we have so many things to cover at this time. So, along with the benefits for a destination to include UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the tourism offer, it becomes indeed really essential to design adequate policies for sustainability. But mostly, what is very important to know is who visits the place and to understand why and when. So it goes without saying that education and knowledge, along with control and planning measure, reducing seasonality and all the situations that may impact negatively the preservation of property and the community at large shall be elaborated. It is equally important to investigate how culture is understood, but in an innovative and creative way, so that can be a motivation for tourists. The visitors are becoming increasingly informed and at the same time they are aware of their mode of participation and of their social and ethical responsibility. So it's time to stimulate them to a very much responsible approach when visiting these kind of properties. The key elements such as satisfaction, enjoyability, pleasure and expectations at destination level are very important for designing a sustainable tourism management plan. And in particular, World Heritage Sites can be the cornerstone of this holistic process and can be used indeed as best practice for fame among the growing number of tourists. So, what are the goals, or should be the goals, for balancing the needs as well the expectations of both the World Heritage Sites communities and the visitors, to in the view to preserve the heritage sites into a more sustainable approach? There are a few commonly acceptable sustainable goals that we can see. For instance, at the environment level, allowing community to define their own limits for acceptable environmental change, or to develop a forced policy ensuring that some profits made by the tourism at the World Heritage Sites will be injected directly into environmental management and maintenance of these kind of properties. Or again, at the economic level, integrating communities into the local tourism economy by means of training, financial incentives, business incubators, and so on. Or again, at the social-cultural level, use conservation and preservation of heritage properties as a leverage for cultural revival, involving mainly the local young generation. It's very important because the young generation can preserve and understand better the means of preservation. At the quality of life level, managing visitation partners to assure locals accessibility to transportation system and other services in the locality, or again, minimizing any potential distraction to daily life. As you can see, there are different goals that can be considered when elaborating a strategy management plan. Here we have a quiz that I also encourage you to take at home as soon as the course, the webinars will be concluded. So we can proceed on again. And now it's the time to talk about preservation and tourism management, which is a very specific focus of our present webinar. And I leave the floor to Anastasia.
Dear all, hi, this is Anastasia speaking. So we are continue our presentation with the topic of preservation, the cultural heritage sites. So why is it so important to preserve them? We can say that cultural heritage is not only about the preserving the building itself, it also helps to shape our personality, define our daily lives, and also culture is a huge source of inclusive growth and job creation. We can say and see also that, however, the economic uncertainty, it has continued to expand the cultural, let's say, policy in the recent years. So, what are a few steps, but not only limited to them, we can take to preserve our cultural heritage sites? The first is prevent ourselves and others from destroying the site. Second, participating in the European programs for keeping the sites in the good condition, of course. Third one, being a part of a heritage initiative. These days, there are a lot of different projects and initiatives where the youth, but not only, can participate and help to prevent the site. Also, the fourth one is to spreading awareness around these monuments and their importance, especially if you are living in some countries where you have some heritage sites. You can do all what you can with your community to save it. Here you can see the heritage cycle, so basically how it starts and where it leads when we're talking about heritage sites. First, we are just enjoying this site. It comes a thirst to understand. Then, after that, we are valuing it. And after, we want to care about it, which help us and help other people to enjoy it, which comes again to the thirst of understand. So you should ask yourself how we can do it and what can be done to preserve the cultural heritage sites. We are coming to the key aspect of the preservation as responsibility. Preserving historical buildings is crucial to understand our nation's heritage. We are coming to an environmentally responsible practice, and nowadays this is very important. By reusing existing buildings, and historic preservation is essentially a recycling program. Existing buildings can often be energy efficient through their use of good ventilation or durable materials or spatial relationships. Of course, it is our responsibility to keep the site for our future and cultural development. The other key aspect is sustainability. What we mean by saying a sustainable development? The meeting the world's current needs by using what we already have so that we are not compromising the resources of future generations has important implications for our environmental, economic, and social well-being. So, as we can see, it covers basically all of the spheres of our lives. And summarizing the responsibility and sustainability, we can say that in today's competitive world, we have to preserve the monuments and showcase in European World Heritage Sites for our next generations as the contributions or achievements of our ancestors. We will talk very shortly about the important tools which can help us in saving our heritage management system. So the tools are and can be used for safeguarding inalienable heritage at the same time guaranteeing a unique experience to visitors. There are three very important key elements to be considered as visitors' request for participation and engagement. We need to pay attention on this one. local communities' needs, and economic sustainability. These tools are complemented with knowledge of sites and also the public. So we will see the overall strategic view on the destination. One of the important part is ownership and management, because of course we need to know the main stakeholders involved in this management process. The accessibility and EU UNESCO4ALL Tour is one of the project which promotes the accessibility to the World Heritage Sites, which means that we ensure that anyone, including future generations, regardless of age, gender, capacities, or cultural background, can participate in social, economic, culture, and leisure activities with equal opportunities, and we are emphasizing the word equal here. Also, what is very important that we need to keep an eye on those who are visiting the heritage sites. For example, such small pieces as rocks or pottery shards may be taken as souvenirs, but visitor can not know that it will ruin or damage the site, so we need to keep an eye on it. Also, the pricing policies are pretty much different nowadays, so a good balance between visitors and residents' expectations shall be considered. Hence, some sites have set different prices for nationals and overseas visitors, so we need to control also this part. The interpretation tools, which help to promote people awareness, enhance commitment and engagement with the site. You should remember that the more personally engaged a visitor feels, the more likely they will adopt behaviors. They are more respectful and they will promote awareness. The marketing strategies, which are very different from site to site, but has something in common, such as taking care that marketing message and actions should aim at fostering awareness about heritage sites, are come and visit, can send us a message as come and visit, because you will live an experience of identity and culture. There is the short quiz, which you are also free to take after our webinar, and we enhance you with this because we also provide you with the answers after. UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and on the example of our project, UNESCO4ALL Tour, the project is about and covering 4 heritage sites in 4 different countries, such as Basilica of Aquileia in Italy, Cathedral of St. James in Šibenik, Croatia, Alhambra Place in Granada, Spain, and Rila Monastery in Bulgaria. Thank you all for the attending, and if you have any questions, we are willing to answer them.